When one thinks of subtlety, restraint, and humility, usually the last film director that comes to mind is Darren Aronofsky. And where his movies have created an equal number of fans praising him for his boldness and daring, as critics labeling him on the nose and boneheaded, both have to agree that he's certainly committed to the bit. Whether you think the stylistic flourishes of a film like Requiem for a Dream are incendiary or just plain stupid, there's no question that it explores a singular idea right through to the bombastic, transcendent end.
Charlie, you have to understand, God hasn't turned his back on you.
While in many ways his latest film The Whale is no different, one might be surprised to see Aronofsky reining it in this time, focusing on a space whose tiny scale contrasts with the massive girth of its obese protagonist Charlie, Brendan Fraser, in an Academy Award-winning fat suit. The story focuses on Charlie's failing health, and his desperate attempt to reconnect with his estranged daughter Ellie, Sadie Sink. A setup that allows us to see one psychological layer after another peeled back, revealing the complex mixture of shame, repression, and trauma which informs his sorry state. It's a familiar story for those who have seen the director's past film, The Wrestler. The experience is also not unlike another very theatrical effort, Tape, a 2001 film by fellow Indiewood auteur Richard Linklater. Both that film and The Whale are adapted from plays, and feature that unfortunate quality of constantly looking for reasons to put every character in the same room. And both films' claustrophobic settings focus a great deal on what critic Stephen Holden called psychologically acute performances. Tape leveraged a technological tool, new at the time, handheld camcorders, to add to that effect. The Whale, conversely, is a very new film, yet is presented in a square 4:3 aspect ratio, maybe to feel closed in, as well as a thick layer of film grain. The whole thing, having Gen Z teenagers on Facebook, and shots of software that looks like it runs on Windows 98, feels retro in a way that is confusing. One effect of the film's relative restraint is a greater focus on the performances, which are all very good. Fraser plays a tough part. Besides the physicality of embodying such a person as Charlie, he has to play a character whose mawkishness both adds to his grotesque appearance and also invokes a great deal of pathos. Hong Chow, who plays Charlie's friend and part-time caretaker Liz, does an exceptional job playing someone who's just barely able to contain their emotion behind their tough, no-nonsense facade. Another effect of the film's restraint is a greater focus on the writing, which is not very good. It's written by Samuel D. Hunter, adapting his own play, and it's filled with long, unsolicited monologues, lines which may as well read, "Why don't you explain your backstory to me?"
Believe me, he doesn't want to hear about new life.
Why?
Because it's caused him a lot of pain.
How?
And symbolism and allegory that is so overt it induces groaning. Which isn't to say it's all bad. There are genuinely great ideas, emotionally moving moments, and compelling psychological insight. But the film seems to go out of its way, especially in the last third, to discard whatever momentum it has built up. Early on, a question is raised about Charlie's financial situation that adds some fascinating ambiguity, but whose dramatic confrontation is completely anticlimactic. There are scenes which depict the complex behavioral patterns around Charlie's eating, and others that just for a moment seem interested in actually exploring what it would be like to live with that kind of body, both of which end up later on being effaced by completely over-the-top melodrama. And we've said nothing about the most glaring pain point, which has dogged this film from day one. That is, the battery of accusations from critics and commentators about its supposed fat phobia. The film's very reason for existing is to take an unflinching look at the grotesqueness of obesity and overeating, and all the psychosocial factors that go into it. So maybe the argument is that this intention per se is the problem. Otherwise, this reviewer is uncertain just how long a shot has to linger on the copious sweat covering Charlie's face, or just how slowly the camera has to rotate around the many folds and bulges of the prosthetic suit before we pass into the realm of exploitation. To bring it back around to our point about Aronofsky's style, we should only expect from such unabashed commitment to find ourselves like the characters, averting our eyes when it's staring us right in the face.
Yeah, you can, put a 20 in the mailbox.
Sure.
We can just leave it on the...
Yeah, I remember. Everything okay in there?